Right, so now we've given this car a little bit of a clean. Welcome back to the episode. Now we've got to start off by getting this engine out now, because as you heard, it has a bit of piston slap and I'm not happy with that. We're going to put in a new engine in it and rebuild this one. A lot of people are asking, why can't you rebuild this one? Which is exactly what we're going to do. To rebuild this one, obviously we're going to put new pistons and oversize the bores, because probably going to be a little damage to the bores. So until we take this engine out, strip it apart, we won't really know. You can see how dirty this engine bay is at the minute, so it's going to be a perfect time to clean it up. See, it's got cobwebs, spiders living in there. So we give it a proper scrub, jet wash it down, make it look nice and tidy in here, and everything's going to go back really clean. You can see the state of this and you know that I can't stand it. This engine bay is going to be like a black and silver type engine bay, so it's just going to be a nice tidy, subtle engine bay, pretty much similar to how it is now, just a little bit cleaner. So as you just see, this engine bay is nearly stripped down now. You can see the engine's literally pretty much on the mounts, back front torque mounts, just removed everything else, all the inlet, I remove all the loom. It just makes it a lot easier, because obviously I've got this cross member here, or this slam panel, whatever you want to call it. I don't normally have these are normally cut off, so what I normally can do, lift the engine up and just turn it, pull it out, but I can't do it with this one, so it's going to have to actually come out and over the slam panel. So just got these torque mounts to undo. I've just dropped down the oil and going to pull out the drive shafts now, so I've just undone the hubs. Put out them drive shafts, and we can lift this engine out. Probably going to replace this subflame as well for a nice one, or at least paint it. So I'm going to check the mounts and everything. Everything's going to be gone over. The actual bodywork's good, just got a lot of surface rust everywhere on the metal parts. As you know, can't be dealing with any of that surface rust anymore. Drives me mad. So that's all going to be getting replaced. And now you can see the state of this engine bay now. Things have been removed. It's all getting cleaned up. Not going to paint it because it's not needed, but you can see it's like filthy, dirty. Jet wash it off, give it a proper scrub up. Replace any of the clips that need replacing that I've got spare. Not going to be obviously done to the extent of the red car, just going to give this a clean so it's nice and tidy and presentable. So that's the engine oil and the gearbox oil drained out. So the gearbox oil looked a little bit underfilled, to be honest. So you can see there's a mix in there. It was a red gearbox oil. It looked a little bit less than I normally put in there. I normally put around 2 litres in there. So it's just a quick one when it comes to undoing these drive shafts nuts. You can see how fine the threads are on it, and when you've got all this gunk and rust that's in there, as soon as you start undoing this, especially if you do it with a gun, that's probably the worst way to do it. Just try and do it with a breaker bar instead. You can see these fine threads, they will destroy themselves very quickly, and having to replace a CV or CV joint just for that reason is a nightmare. So what I normally do is get a wire brush, and I go around all the threads, get rid of all that rust, and then just use a bit of lube around it just before you do that. And then also what I do is I crack this off, spin it a couple of turns, then spin it back again, and then turn it, because otherwise you're going to get rust build up inside that thread, and it's just going to destroy all these threads on the outer part. When you come to torquing this nut up again, it's just going to spin. Before I do that, I just want to tell you, get rid of this oil filter on these cars, because it causes a load of issues with that chassis leg when you're trying to get these up. From experience, never run an oil filter when you're trying to put these engines in, just put them in afterwards. So protect up the oil pump as well, obviously put a cloth or something around it. So this is just oiled on now. That engine mount, that gearbox mount, get them undone, strap this engine up, pull it out. So there we go, engine's out. Didn't take long to do, easy enough job. Grimy hard engine that's come out of there. This gearbox is going to take a little bit of cleaning up to do, but the most important part about the gearbox is the fact that this gearbox is an AF gearbox. Now these are the proper Z-let gearboxes. People use cheap gearboxes, other diesels and all other different cars. They never work nowhere near as good. The ratios on these gearboxes absolutely perfect. You start putting in different gearboxes, you're just ruining the drive of this car. I drove one of these Z-lets not long ago with a slightly shorter ratio gearbox in it, and it was nowhere near as fun to drive at the same power. These gearboxes with a 7.5k rev limit will do nearly 75 mile an hour in second gear. So forget your DSGs, you hardly have to change gear with these things. Right, so here we go, both engines are out now. So this is the engine I've just pulled out. Don't need the flywheel clutch set up because I'm going with the Lighten flywheel and the Helix clutch that I've got on this one. Got to change over this wiring loom to the starter loom that's off the other car. I've just pulled that off because this one is obviously used for my wire tuck, so I've extended some stuff and changed some connections, so that won't work anymore. I'm going to change over the starter as well because this one looks like it, well, it's been replaced quite recently actually, and it started up the car really nice, so I might as well just use that one. So get rid of this one, remove this one, clean it up. Just got a little bit of cleaning to do where a previous CV gate has split, and some old oil leaks that I've sealed up now, so I'm just going to clean them up now. So this is both of the KO6s that I've got at the minute. You can see this has got a Turbo Smart recirc on it, and it's got a Courtney actuator on it as well with an uprated bracket. But you can see a little bit of smoke in here, oil leak. You know, this is a Turbo Dynamics one, so I wouldn't expect it to do any more than 500 miles from a rebuild because they don't even use uprated bearings, nothing. There's literally, all they do is they put on a billet wheel that's too big for the shaft, and they sell it for like 1100 quid. Absolute robbery. But Manifold's going to be good on it. This one I get a rebuild as well. I send it off to be rebuilt. So we're going to use this turbo. I've absolutely hammered on. This is the one that I got made with all uprated stuff, uprated bearings, extra oil ports put into the thrust bearings. You know, it's got step adjusted seal. It's just got literally everything. And you can see you've got an enlarged cutback blade turbine as well here, as opposed to the Turbo Dynamics one, which is a stock turbine because it's still a stock KO4 wheel. And inside here as well, it's got no protection to protect the oil seal. It's got no closed back design on the wheel, so it just gets all the heat, and that's what burns out these seals quickly. Whereas this one I had made with a closed back wheel that just shields. It's like a big shield that shields the oil seals. And this one, you know, it's been running 24-25 psi of boost for about 1,000 miles now, and it has got absolutely zero play, as you can see, and no oil leaks from it at all because it's been run properly with a restrictor bolt, warmed up properly, and now that the wheel's hardened, it's going to last for ages. This one, let's see if I can show you. Don't know if you can hear that. It's got loads of in and out movement, which is the worst. Side to side is not too bad on these turbos, but in and out is the actual worst. So it's just because they don't use any uprated stuff on these. And they won't warrant either. If I sent this back to them, they wouldn't even warrant it. They'd tell me it's my fault or whatever. So because this is such a low mileage box, it's actually one of the first boxes I've ever seen that still has the AF that's painted onto the side of the box. You can just make it out there, AF. So normally you have a sticker which is there. I've actually peeled it off so I can put it onto the box after I've painted it. So obviously this is F23 casing, so it's an F23 gearbox, but there's probably about 20 to 25 different ratios in these gearboxes, and if you don't run the Astra GSI gearbox in your car and change over to what the internet tells you, like a long ratio diesel gearbox, or you know, a short ratio Zafira GSI gearbox or something like that, you're literally ruining the drive of this car. These cars are absolutely perfect with the ratios that are on these gearboxes. It's going to come to a point when there's not going to be a lot of these AF gearboxes left, and you have to start rebuilding them. I used to just throw them away. I had, like, at one point I had about 8 of them that were all broke. They normally destroy the synchros through fast shifting, so if you're revving them to like 7,500 RPM and then shifting way too fast like we used to when we was racing, you destroy the synchros in them. Very easy to replace, but because they were so cheap, we used to just scrap the boxes. It's going to come to a point where we're going to have to rebuild these boxes. Right, so while the engine's all apart, I thought I might as well go over everything, just check all the seals out and everything. I've took the cover off the back. I've got a nice fresh one of these to go on as well. Obviously going to chuck a new cam belt on it. Just made sure the old tensioners and the pulleys were good, even though they were brand new. When I last built this engine, it's done about 1,500 miles since the last rebuild. But obviously I wanted to just make sure there's no oil leaks, because there was an old oil leak coming from the cam belt cover, and it just covered the whole of the block. So I've cleaned everything up now. Obviously going to chuck on a new oil filter as well. That's brand new GM oil pump, so that's not needed to be removed. So I'll just give that all a nice properly cleaned up. Got a nice new thermostat on there as well, Circoli one, which I rate. They're good. So we're going to get this cover back on now, and now the block's all cleaned up. I was just checking this oil seal as well around the pump. They normally go, but that's bone dry as well. So we're all good to go. Well worth checking. So just going to strip the bits off of this car as well. Don't need the pulleys, I've already got a set of them. And don't really need nothing else off of this. You see it's got brand new water pump and everything on it as well, but not really much I need off that. So just going to put this all back together now, time it up with a new cam belt. Okay, maybe I lied about pulling this apart. So what I normally do with these cars, as I say, I normally test different bits on it, and I'm just testing a new cam setup. That's why when I do tell you stuff on the channel, it's not stuff I've just thought off the top of my head. It's normally stuff I've been testing and testing and testing. Obviously, I'm just changing to a different inlet and exhaust cam at the minute, just one I wanted to try for a while, and I might as well do that while this is off because I can just test it on the new car. So as always happens with me, I'm just going deeper and deeper. So I'm changing out these lifters now. I just like to have properly adjusted valve train in the car, you know, and these lifters, they do wear over time. They've been in there a while now, and I've got a couple of sets, so I'm just going to change these out. Now if you're ever going to use lifters or change your lifters over, always use inner lifters. So you can just about see in there the INA logo at the top there. That's, you know, obviously that's the genuine ones. If you don't run these and run pattern parts and wonder why your engine's going to be really rattling, it's mainly because of these things, because the pattern parts just not up to the job. Even these struggle with a 7,500 rev limiter, and then you really need to go over to solids. But these are the only ones that I've found to hold together anything over 7,000 RPM. The pattern parts are just going to disintegrate, especially if you've got hard cut and that on the car. You're going to chew these lifters up, you're going to end up dropping a valve, smashing your pistons, destroying your engine. So only ever use inner lifters on these engines, and you won't have a nasty rattly engine like most of the Z-lets when you start them up from cold. With the cheap lifters in there, they're nasty and rattly for a couple of seconds until the oil pressure gets up. So while I'm messing around with these cam cover gaskets, I just want to show you the difference between like an L-ring and a Victor Rines one. Now I love Victor Rines, I don't like L-ring and anything. You can clearly see that that's an L-ring part. Look at this gasket, so you can see it's like nowhere near as flexible. You can see it's quite hard, it's like a solid O-ring. But the thing you'll clearly see between this and the GM one is the GM has a double channel design. You can see here, if you look up close, you can see there's like a rib either side and there's a hollow in the middle. And this allows better sealing. You can see it a little bit clearer like there, as opposed to L-ring. And this design is way better for sealing properties, and it's why that these gaskets are a little bit more expensive. I always will go for the GM one over the L-ring, and definitely the L-ring anyway. The Victor Rines one stays a little bit supple. This one's gone hard, it ain't even done any miles. These GM ones can be reused. I've reused them in the past because they actually say supple. They're made out of a different material. It's up to you what you want to do. Right, so I just removed all them lifters out of the car, as you see, and I've changed them over, and I was going through the lifters just to check them all over and make sure there was no faults with them. And this one just fell apart, right? So I had a little look a bit closer. You can see in here that the plunger had contacted with the lifter itself, probably due to high RPMs bouncing off the limiter, you know, 7,500 RPM. Totally down to me. You can see here that the top of the lifter has started to crack as well. Now these are only like 18 months old, the best lifters you can get as well for these engines. But I run these engines hard, so it's not this part's fault, it's my driving's fault, and that's why I build these engines. But you need to know that if you're going to drive your car hard, if you're building these like high power engines, don't matter how good the engine builder is, don't matter how good the parts are, you could get a failure at some point. Not like guarantee, but you can't blame the engine builder or the mapper. You've got to blame the fact that you're putting out 3 times the amount of horsepower that the engine should be putting out, and you're driving it really hard every single day. So you can see there, not blaming the part at all, but you can see there's a crack appearing there. Lucky we caught this in time, otherwise it would have dropped a valve and destroyed the engine, but now we've caught it in time. Fresh lifters in there, good to go again. So here we go, engine's all timed up, just put it all back together, cam belts on, new fresh cam belt kit. New cam belt. You can see we've got the light and pulley on there, and we've got the timed up intake as well. I've timed up the intake for the new camshaft that I'm putting there. Just gone for a slightly different change of camshafts. I like to test them, as I said. Just got to do the exhaust side, but we'll do that probably on the rolling road or whatever. We've got new tensioners, everything, so this is ready to go on. Just going to put an oil filter on there. We're going to wrap that up first in a bit of tape so that we put the oil filter on when it gets back in the engine bay, and it looks a lot better. So you can see, looking nice and clean. Just got to clean up this sump because it always gets up like grubby and dirty, but this is really ready to go in. So all I'm going to do now is clean up the gearbox and bolt this together. Right, so the gearbox has had a clean up, and you can see I've probably spent a little bit more time than I should have done on it, but I think you've agreed the results are worth it. You know, it's looking mega fresh, almost like brand new, well, probably better than brand new. So I never paint inside the bell housing because there's no need, so I just clean all that lot up with brake cleaner, make sure it's all nice, all the dust and everything's gone from the clutch. And then I'll give this a proper coat of paint. It's going to last a long time now. None of the salts and all the corrosion are going to get to it. I'm going to put on the sticker again that normally sits here, and I might even paint in the actual AF sticker that goes on here, just to make it look a little bit original. So I've just cleaned up the slave cylinder, put a new fresh seal on there, and we're ready to go. So going to mount this back onto the engine. So the engine bay's all been jet washed off. You can see it's a lot cleaner than it was. All the dust and the grime has all gone, all the cobwebs, the whole lot. You can see the crusty subframe that's down there, that's all getting removed. Not in this episode. There's no tracking places open near me at the minute, so I can't get the tracking done. So I'm leaving the subframe in just so I can test drive it for a bit, and then as soon as the tracking place is open, I've got a complete subframe with solid subframe bushes, you know, the whole lot, all brand new stuff to go on as well. So that will all be dropped off in another episode. So the plan is now just get this engine in, get the car running again, and get this engine bay tidied up because it's a little bit messy at the minute. Well, there you go, the engine's in. Didn't take long to get in. Sitting there nice and fresh now. So gearbox all cleaned up. Engine bay's looking a little bit better. Obviously, it's no concourse car, but it's just going to be clean. You know, I can't put things back together. Put my old engine mount on there that was painted up, so I didn't have to do the other ones. The mounts and stuff for the torque mounts and everything, that's all going to be cleaned up when this subframe comes off. You see how crusty the subframe is at the minute, and as I say, that's being replaced. So engine blocks looking fresh, gearbox looking good. Car's going back together, so about to bolt everything back on, get the inlet back on, get this tape off the back of the inlet, obviously to just protect the ports and everything. So just got to finish off the wiring down the back here for the starter motor loom and get these cables and everything done. So I've just stripped down this Turbo Dynamics KO6 setup or whatever they are. I know it's an old turbo now, the Turbo Dynamics one, but it's a I don't rate this turbo at all. I mean, it's got tons and tons of side of in and out play, and you can see it's obviously scored the compressor housing, so now that compressor housing is absolute scrap because it's a KO6. That's all, it's been bored out already. Well, looks like it has. There's nothing special about it. It literally looks like all they have done is put a billet wheel on the end of a KO4 housing and ain't uprated any of the oil seals or anything. It's a dreadful setup. I mean, I'd never use it. That core is done. You know, I'm never going to use that core. Get another one built up. The thing spools as fast as the KO4. You've seen the turbo on the car. You've seen footage of the car, and this turbo is an amazing setup. You know, it would do 350, 360 horsepower on the right engine with the right amount of boost. But this Turbo Dynamics one, you know, absolutely nothing special about that at all. Anyone who knows turbos will literally know that that's just a KO4. That they've literally took the KO4 wheel off it, put a billet one on there, not uprated any of the seals, balanced it again, maybe enlarged the compressor side as well, and they've sold it for £1,000 or whatever it is. So that core is going in the bin, absolutely useless, never going to get it rebuilt. I thought if it had some special compressor side on it and a special wheel, I'd get it rebuilt, but you can see there's no closed back design to that wheel. I can't show you this turbo now because it's all together and I don't really want to be unbolting it. But basically there's webbing on the back of a closed back design, and that protects the oil seal, which is the reason this one just kept going. So yeah, that one's going in the bin. Compressor housing scrap as well. We're going to take the Turbo Smart recirc out of it. Probably was just a Z-let one anyway that's bored out. And yeah, so we won't be using any of that. All I'm going to reuse is the manifold, which is over here. Just going to check that now for cracks. You can see where the oil had been leaking. The wastegate's got no cracks in it at all. Just check that, and the wastegate's absolutely fine, but just got to check the most important part, which is inside this exhaust housing itself. Once I've checked that over, we'll be able to use this exhaust manifold again, which is a proper GM one, which is good. Never use the pattern part ones, they're absolutely trash. So I know I've gone over this a few times before, but just for the new guys on the channel, people that just joined in, the most important part about this exhaust manifold is this part in here. If that's cracked, you pretty much scrap the manifold. It will work, but you know, you're not going to get the peak performance. You're not going to get the peak spool from the turbo. This one's good, which is really good because it's actually a GM manifold. It's not cracked as well. Now this is not as important unless it's really badly cracked, but this, you can see in there, there's absolutely zero cracks in there. So this manifold's perfect. I might even switch the turbo over to this manifold. It's so good. So I've got loads of little new bits laying around that I've just had in stock for a while. So I'm just going to put this brand new Lucas alternator on there. This Bosch one, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. No reason really to change it. Little bit of a noise from the bearing you can hear there, but it would be audible when you had the engine running. One thing I've been doing lately is I've been Loctiting these bolts on the back here for this alternator. I had a little issue when I went to Santa Pod not long ago, and it was down to one of these alternator bolts that fell out without even knowing, caused the alternator bracket to snap, and a lot of other issues. So I've been Loctiting them lately. Don't normally Loctite the bolts on these cars, but just been doing these ones because they're hard to see as well down the back of the block, and I couldn't figure out why the alternator bracket had snapped. Ended up being one of these bolts, and the bracket dropped down. The alternator had like gone at a weird angle, snapped the bracket. So yeah, just been Loctiting them up. So as usual, gearbox oil, Miller's Motorsport CRX Obviously this is the LS, which has a friction modifier in it. It doesn't need this for this gearbox because it ain't got an LS gearbox. Obviously when it's got a friction modifier, it's because of the clutch plates in the LS. 7590 NT Plus Motorsport oil. This keeps these F23 gearboxes fresh as a daisy, and as long as you ain't shifting at like 7,500 RPM bouncing off the limiter, these synchros will last. Mainly these gearboxes get destroyed by the owners rather than the gearbox themselves, or really high mileage boxes, the bearings do go on them. Filling up the gearbox now. I normally do it while it's all apart, just put the drive shafts back in, you know, and it's a lot easier to fill up. But you can see how gold that fluid is. If that doesn't come out as gold as that, once you drain it back out, there's something wrong with your gearbox. So as you can see right now, being a bit of a mess, what we're doing is we're stripping down this turbo. This is Mark 06, like the Motorsport Spec one, and we're going to be putting it into this new exhaust housing because even though this one's heavily ported, highly modified, you can see like the size of the wastegate port on these as compared to the stock ones. If I can get the thing undone, you can see how much bigger it is. You can see we've got a crack in there now, which is not that important. But there's the most important part is that I've seen it as a crack in the exhaust housing, a big one as well. As I showed you, this exhaust housing, this manifold has got no cracks in it at all. Obviously it's not ported like that one, but I'm willing to sacrifice it just to run an uncracked manifold, because you've got to use these manifolds as a consumable. If you don't have a working, functioning, properly 100% working turbo, you might as well have a weak engine. You might as well have an engine with no compression, because these are just as important as the strength of the engine itself to have a working turbo. They've got to work together. You have a good turbo, a good engine. And that's why these cars, some of them, people go and, oh, why is my car not making the same amount of power? It's because you've got somewhere in your system, somewhere in your engine and your turbo setup is a weakness. You need to get everything functioning 100%. As I say, use these exhaust manifolds as a consumable. They ain't designed to last 100,000 miles. They're going to crack. They're going to crack inside. The wastegate's going to crack. Going to leak boost. You're not going to be able to spool up as quick. Not going to make as much power. So they're only a couple £100 to buy. New, you know, you get GM one for $250. Not a lot of money. So go out and get yourself one. If you're getting boost issues, check your manifold. Take it apart. Have a look. Right, so this is the manifold just removed. You can see heavily ported, big ports, big wastegate, whatever. But I'm obviously going to change it out anyway. And you can see the most important part is inside there. That nasty crack that's going all the way down the exhaust housing. Now you can barely see where it's going to, but that is just going to keep opening up. And as you can imagine, when it's getting glowing hot, there's going to be a large gap there. It's going to heed horsepower, is going to heed spooling time of the turbo. Obviously we've got a couple of cracks started up on the wastegate as well. And this manifold was new a few years ago, but it's took absolute abuse over the years. And I'm just expecting them to be cracked, because they just crack, and you can get a couple of years out of them with some abuse, but then they start to crack. Now I checked this maybe, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago, and it had no cracks in it. So it just goes to show how things change. If you've got problems with your turbo setup, always check the exhaust housings first. So this is the manifold that's going on there, and if you look down inside the same place, absolutely no cracks. Let's just quickly focus in. You can see in there, no cracks going along there. And there's no cracks on the wastegate at all either. The wastegate part of it is not as important, but it's nice to have free of cracked wastegates. You can see there's absolutely none around there. So this thing's good to go, and it's going to give 100% performance as opposed to, you know, 80% performance if you've got a cracked manifold. So while this manifold's off, I just want to show you the difference between the ported manifold and the unported manifold. You can see the size of the ports difference. This is my heavily ported manifolds that I do. And you can see the size of the ports, and obviously I port right inside these runners as well, getting rid of any of these restrictions. And you can see how much it opens up the port as opposed to the unported one. So, you know, it's well worth doing. I'm going to get another manifold because I ain't got time to do this one at the minute, and I'll do this separately and then change it over another time. But for now, this one's going on. Right, so this turbo setup's all built up, so everything is optimal now. We've got the optimal wastegate spring in there. I've dropped from a 17 psi to 14 psi spring because we've got 2.5 inch exhaust. We ain't got 630cc injectors. Full spring, I've just re-sprung with a blue spring in there. If that's no good, then I'll just put in this Turbo Smart Recirc as well. We've also got obviously the uncracked manifold in there now, so this turbo setup is going to be working to its optimum level.